Hey, how's it going, friends? Thank you for tuning in to VR Revelations. Make sure you give the video a like and make sure you subscribe for future coverage. Right, so let's get right into it. So it looks like Russia is preparing for a major conflict in what they are calling it another Great Patriotic War. Of course, if you Google the Great Patriotic War, it's going to take you to the World War II era, 1942. And it's going to talk about the history of Russia and how they defeated Nazi Germany, how they resisted the attacks of the Germans, all the lives that were sacrificed, and how they eventually, kicked the Germans out of Russia and eventually reached Berlin, where, of course, Hitler killed himself. But it's great history. It's something that Russia celebrates very proudly. And indeed, in their history, it was a great military achievement, on par with the victory over Napoleon, the emperor. So for Russia to come out and label this as the next Great Patriotic War is very telling of their mindset currently, right? Their state of mind, this war state of mind. Seems like they are, being, they're being inspired by this warlike spirit, which nations tend to get into when they are very proud and nationalistic. And of course, like I stated in other videos, Russia is a very unified country. They have a history that goes back hundreds of years, of course, back into the Russian Empire, and they have a lot of great military victories. So it seems that they are very aware of where all this is leading to. And so it looks like Putin actually met with military leadership, and they were taking a look at the situation in Ukraine, and they, I guess, had an analysis of the situation and what could possibly develop in the future here. And it seems that the general consensus was that they will eventually face off against NATO and the United States. And I think a lot of people would agree with that, with everything going on right now, with the way that both sides are asking for things that, just don't seem to be realistic with what the other side wants. And then, there's these rumors of Russia launching this new major offensive at the beginning of the year towards the capital. So things are definitely ramping up here. But let's go ahead and jump into the article here and just give it a glance, go over some of the information here because it is pretty long. But yeah, it says here, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, the minister of defense, S. Shoigu, and all senior and top Russian leadership have decided to lay the groundwork for a new Great Patriotic War, a large-scale conflict with NATO from the Arctic to the Eastern Europe and Poland. The size of the Russian army increases to 1.5 million, and the number of conscripts to 695,000 is said to exceed 2 million, and conscripts to 1 million in just 2 years. So it looks like they decided they are going to have to increase the size of the army here at the most by 2 years. At the same time, by decree, Putin creates military training centers in 16 provincial universities. So it looks like they are now turning universities, or at least 16 here, into military training grounds. In addition, a new army corps and 17 new divisions will be created. Russia abandons BTGs and returns to large formations as a sign of impending head-on confrontation with NATO. Okay, so I did go over some information here. What they're talking about here is that it seems that Russia has been using small battalions or small groups of men, right, 4 to 5 men, and they move independently, towards their objectives, towards their missions. It seems that this is a pretty common tactic in our day and age. I think the United States uses that strategy of sending small units instead of just having it, be the old school way where they would have massive, massive amounts of soldiers moved together. But yeah, it looks like Russia is actually going to revert to those old ways, and they are now going to start using larger groupings of soldiers. If you remember at the beginning of the war here, we got all these weird videos of, small Russian units trying to take over the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv, and it was pretty embarrassing. It was almost hard to believe how easily the Ukrainians were, repelling these small battalions. And so it looks like Russia is now admitting that that was a tactic they were using on purpose. But now, since they are looking ahead at a bigger conflict with NATO, they are going to start using bigger divisions of soldiers. So the article goes on to say here, Russia will form a new army corps in Karelia, 2 new aerosol divisions, 3 new motorized rifle divisions in the Kherson and Zaporizhia regions, and upgrade 7 existing brigades of the Northern Fleet and Western, Central, and Eastern military districts to 7 new motorized divisions, rifle, while 5 existing Marine brigades are upgraded to 5 Marine divisions. So there's a lot of upgrading. They're making a lot of their units a lot bigger now. So, stronger force. It says here, preparations for a new great patriotic war. Russian analysts report that the Russian nation has now entered the final stage of preparation for a confrontation with NATO. So, again, these are reports from Russian analysts, according to War News 24/7 here. They specifically mention the last meeting of the board of the Ministry of Defense showed that the highest military political leadership of the country is aware of the problems of the army and intends to radically restructure it, abandoning unjustified innovations. The course of the operation in Ukraine prompted the Russian leadership to begin a large-scale reform of the armed forces. This was announced on December 21st at the meeting of the board of the Ministry of Defense by President Vladimir Putin. So just 6 days ago. It is currently still December 27th here, 11:30 p.m. as I'm making this video. So 6 days ago, the decision was taken there as Putin was talking with the generals that they are going to, begin a large-scale reform. Let's see here. It says, the first preliminary discussion is this. Our country is returning to the principles of military organization traditional to the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union, but taking into account modern realities. So again, they are going to reorganize the strategy, the army, and they are actually going to revert to the old Russian Empire. That's like, hundreds of years ago. And the Soviet Union, right, which we saw in World War II, they're going to revert to using their style of setup for the soldiers. So they are going to have bigger divisions now. And you got to remember, this is sort of that confidence that they are having in the old tactics that the Russian Empire used and the Soviet Union. Of course, they are remembering all the major victories that Russia has achieved, such as the victory over Napoleon Bonaparte. As he was trying to conquer Europe, he actually failed when he tried to invade the Russian Empire. He overextended himself. The Russian winter came in, and eventually that spelled the beginning of the end for Napoleon. And the same thing happened to Nazi Germany. Hitler, he tried to invade, Russia in the big major operation Barbarossa, and they got close to Berlin, just like Napoleon did. Berlin. They got close to Moscow, but they were kicked out. The Russian winter came. they couldn't take it, and the Russians started to push back, and the same thing that happened to Napoleon happened to the Nazis. And so this is sort of a show or an admittance of that confidence they have in those old type of tactics. And again, we're talking about the organization of the units. So instead of having this modern style strategy where they have small battalions, they are now gonna go back to having major, big amounts of soldiers moving together. So they go on to say here, size is important. The first innovation will be crucial both for the continuation of the war in relation to Ukraine and in the event of a war with NATO. Is the rejection of the concept of BTG, battalions and tactical groups, and a return to the concept of large formations, divisions, and army corps. Yes, the Russian military is returning to the structure of the armed forces of the USSR and the Russian Empire. So again, they go on to explain how these small battalion units just weren't working for them. And it seems that that's why we saw Russia sort of fail in their initial push for Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, at the beginning of the war, and sort of that embarrassment that they had there. Again, they've been making advances now. They are putting a lot of pressure on Ukraine. It seems like Ukraine is in desperate need of better weapons in order to, keep on resisting. Apparently, the United States is going to send their Patriot missile defense systems, but that could take 2 months. And on top of that, we have Ukraine rumoring that they suspect a possible large offensive by Russia at the beginning of the year. So it's very interesting because, as I covered in my previous videos, they are moving a lot of tanks towards the front. So this could be the beginning of this reorganization to send bigger, divisions of soldiers instead of those small battalions independently. And this could definitely overwhelm the Ukrainians here if they don't receive better defense systems like ASAP, as soon as possible. So yeah, it looks like Russia is increasing the size of their military here. It looks like they're reverting to the old organization style of the empire and of the Russian Empire and the USSR. Those style of organizations, of course, that help to defeat historical figures like Napoleon and like Hitler. So it looks like this spirit of war, right? This nationalistic spirit is taking over the leadership there, and they are getting ready for these major upcoming battles by looking into the past and sort of using those using those old tactics while at the same time implementing the new technology, the hypersonic missiles, the conventional or small tactical nuclear weapons, and the fighter jets, the artillery, all of these modern, the UAVs, the drones, all of this modern technology, while at the same time moving around the battlefield like they used to do back in the days. And again, it's very interesting here how they are, preparing for NATO and, possibly a confrontation with the United States. It's like they are sort of, letting us know that they are so confident they are going to win here in Ukraine that they are already making plans for NATO. And, unfortunately for the citizens of Ukraine, I think that is the correct forecast. I think that, we're getting close to a point where the United States is, going to have to take the decision to push all their chips to the center of the table and go all in. But that would imply that, they're going to send their best weapons, possibly even small tactical nuclear bombs, because that's honestly the only way that anybody is going to defeat Russia or any world superpower. I mean, the only way you can defeat the United States, China, Russia, England, or these other nuclear superpowers, because that is what, makes these nations so influential and so threatening, is the fact that they have nuclear weapons. And again, I talked about, in one of my videos, my series, Signs of the End, that nuclear weapons are a sign of the end. And so, in order to take down one of these nuclear superpowers, you have to be willing to go to nuclear war, and that's mutually assured destruction. Other than that, you got to hope for some sort of coup or civil war in the country of your enemy, where it destabilizes it so much that you can just come in and take over. But again, you'll hear propaganda of coup attempts and assassinations and whatnot. But I'm not Russian, but from everything I'm seeing and the history I've read on Russia, they are as proud a nation as the United States is, and as patriotic, if not even more, because of how much the United States has changed ideologically. And again, Russia has been here, far longer than the United States. They have history. They have a history. They fought off Napoleon and actually overcame him. They resisted the Nazis and essentially defeated Nazi Germany. Of course, you had England, the United States, these other nations help out, but a lot of the brunt force of the Nazis was absorbed by Russia at the beginning of the Barbarossa military operation, the large-scale offensive that Nazi Germany attempted on Russia, which again failed just like Napoleon did. So, but again, if we step even further back, right, and we look at the situation through the lens of the Bible, all this is happening to fulfill the end of the world, the end-time prophecies, right? We live in a corrupt world, and so these nations are going to go to war with each other because the Bible said that nation would rise against nation. But I think this is very interesting because, again, I think there are some other prophecies that need to be fulfilled biblically, like the New World Order, like the Antichrist, before we actually have an end of the world. But I think that these are two big pieces on the chessboard that are going to take, center stage, main roles in what is going to shape up to be the finale, sort of speak. I think China and these other major, world powers will also play a part. But things are not looking good for Ukraine here. It looks like their suspicions of a large offensive might come true. And I think with, the United States getting ready to send out this help out to Ukraine with these Patriot missile systems, it's sort of making Russia act a little bit faster. And I think a lot of destruction and a lot of advancement by the Russians is coming to Ukraine. So I will definitely be praying for the citizens there, for the children, the mothers, the fathers. It's sad to see all of this, speaking from a human perspective. As me and you sit here talking about these things, but there's video all over the internet showing us the realities of this, that, people are in the midst of this sort of prophetic beginning of the end of the world that is taking place. And, we all have to do with this, guys. We all have to do with this. All of our governments are involved in this to some degree. Whatever nation you're living in, they are going to support one side or the other. But just remember, guys, the Word of God prophesied of these times. Nuclear weapons were invented for that reason. And you have to put your trust in God. Don't put your trust in your politicians. Don't put your trust in your nation. Don't put your trust in men. Put your trust in God. Because again, the truth is stranger than fiction. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful day.